All right, my name's Arjun. I'm the director of game design at Bitfry Game Studios.
For those who are unfamiliar with the series, how would you describe Ultimate Rivals: The Court? Like, what are sports fans in for with this game?
Well, it's at its core, it feels very familiar to a traditional kind of arcade sports basketball game, most notably NBA Jam. I think the big draw, the big twist is kind of the hook of the franchise is that we have athletes from all the major stick and ball sports all coming into play basketball against each other. And then additionally, there's ultimate moves and kind of superpower abilities that these athletes get to use based on their native sport.
And I'm sure you and Ben Friedland get tired of getting asked this question all the time, but like, for the sake of our viewers that are learning about this game for the first time, I'm sure they're curious. How have you wrangled together this many professional athletes from across so many different sports?
Very carefully and over a long period of time. I mean, it's there's a reason why it hasn't been done like this before, and it's a very long and arduous process to get this sort of radical idea floated and kind of sold to these groups.
When people look at pro athletes on the basketball court in this kind of manner, you brought up NBA Jam, and that's where I feel like a lot of the comparisons are going to go. So how does Ultimate Rivals: The Court differ from NBA Jam, and how does it stand out as its own thing?
Sure. Well, I mean, aside from the obvious like kind of technological leaps since that period of time, I mean, on its face right away, it's three on three as opposed to 2-on-2, which kind of leads to a lot of more kind of depth in interaction. You've got your forward, center, and guard on both teams, and so it's more of a team. I think it's more of a team and a strategic kind of gameplay. Even though it operates at a very breakneck speed, there's a lot of kind of split-second decision making that goes into that, as well as kind of in the meta game deciding who to slot where, what implications that's going to have on your CPU teammate, and so on. I mean, of course, there's also the ultimate moves. That's kind of our marquee feature when it comes to athlete differentiation. Each athlete has access to an ultimate move based on their native sport. So for basketball, we have the Fury Ball Ultimate, which allows you to dunk from anywhere on the court and shoot perfect shots. And it's got all this cool fire effects going for it. Similarly, there's one for soccer, football, baseball, and hockey as well. So then beyond that, I mean, kind of the core gameplay actions also have nuance to them based on your native sport. So a hockey player might slam the ball down with their hockey stick in a slam dunk. A soccer player kind of does like a butterfly kick to kick the ball for a jump shot, that kind of thing. So these sort of small differences have very subtle but meaningful impacts on gameplay. And it's kind of like an extra layer of depth that I think fans are going to really like and sort of not expect from a traditional arcade sports basketball game.
I was prepared for like the big name sports athletes from like all the world's major sports. I don't think I was quite ready for the announcement that you've also partnered up with WWE. So what do the WWE superstars bring to the court?
Well, I unfortunately can't go into too much detail on that just yet. I mean, I will say that they'll all come with their signatures and they'll each bring a unique flavor to the gameplay. It's actually an interesting kind of, from a design perspective, it's an interesting difference between how we're choosing to handle the superstars versus the rest of our roster. We're starting out with a smaller group, and with that property, I think there's a lot more oomph behind the individuality of the superstars. So without giving away too much, that's definitely a big focus for us, is kind of nailing that authenticity.
You got into some of what you can do with a 3v3 format. What else does that 3v3 format open up that you can't really do with 2v2 or 5v5?
Well, I think that 5v5 is an interesting question. I think that for us as a company, we always kind of we're operating more lean, I think, and that sort of goes into every game we work on. I mean, in rink it was 2-on-2 with the goalie. That rink is our hockey game that came out previously. Court, it's 3-on-3. I think that it the less noise there is on screen, the more you're able to really kind of get to the meat of the gameplay. But at the same time, we felt that adding that third player in would give a lot of opportunity for stuff like kind of driving to the basket and kicking it back out to three, kind of fake out maneuvers that are doable in a 2-on-2 scenario, but definitely have a lot less, I think, dynamics than when you add that third player.
You've been running a closed beta for a couple of weeks, and how's the player feedback been? Like, what aspect of the game have you heard from players about the most?
Wow. I mean, honestly, my head is spinning with all the feedback. It's crazy. I mean, the feedback is so positive, which, I mean, we all hoped for, but I don't think that we were kind of prepared for the level of positivity. And so for that, I'm thankful. In terms of definitely the roster is, I think, the thing that I see the most conversation about. There's a streamer whose stream I was watching the other day who went through the process of actually overlaying a measurement on top of all the stat bars in the roster menu to basically reverse engineer a spreadsheet of all the stats for the roster in game. So it's really interesting. I think there's a lot of debate over kind of like which sport is best, which ultimate is best. It's really fun to see it play out because I think it's obviously never what we expect while developing, but it's always exciting to follow along with.
Now, you brought up the rink, and yes, this is the second Apple Arcade title for the Ultimate Rival series. What has Apple's hardware opened up for you, both technically and for gameplay?
Well, I mean, one thing that I think the thing that can't be understated is kind of the core function of the philosophy on the platform versus something like a free-to-play app store or maybe even a free or premium title on console, especially with regards to sports. I mean, without getting too much in the weeds, it's not uncommon to see a lot of these games heavily monetized. So I think what's nice about being on the Apple platform is that we're able to really focus on the gameplay, and there's kind of that variable of the monetization and kind of that motivation that we don't really need to factor in to anything like balance or kind of in-game economy, stuff like that. So really when it comes down to like the core gameplay and the rate at which players get to unlock content and unlock athletes and stuff like that, it's all very pure, which is, I think, probably, in my opinion, one of the coolest parts of working on Apple.
And you're also working on a PC version. And are there any major challenges that the dev team has encountered in bringing something primarily built for the Apple ecosystem to a PC?
Well, it's a funny question. I mean, you would think so, but the fact is that our game is very much a console PC game that's just managed to cram its way into a phone. And so, in that sense, I guess, no, not really, because it's really, we didn't pull any punches and we didn't really water the game down in any way to fit a mobile market or to be mobile friendly. Like you might, there's not a daily login reward. There's not a extensive notifications, things like that. So it's really it feels very much like a console experience just on a phone, which I actually think is kind of becoming more and more the norm nowadays on mobile. And so it's not, it actually has not been much of a leap to get onto PC.
I know you were aiming to have Ultimate Rivals: The Court ready for release by the end of the NBA playoffs. Is that goal still in sight?
July is the goalpost. Yes, it still is the goalpost. Yeah, no, I mean, everybody on the team is super excited and proud of what we built. So, there's no sense torturing ourselves and the fans any longer. We want to get people playing.
And last question for me, is there still an athlete that's on your wish list? Is there somebody that's not in the game yet that you kind of wish you could just throw in?
Well, I mean, geez, to be totally honest, I've always been kind of more partial to the fantasy element of this game. And so I've always had kind of crazy kind of Space Jam style crossover ideas that I've always thought would be really cool. I think there was an early there have been concept arts that I'm not sure I can talk about because they've been on and off the table many times. But I think broadly I'll say that the fantasy crossover stuff and definitely the original IP, which we have yet to kind of talk about, but is definitely coming down the road.